because IBM was everything. Nowadays, ask my kids, what do you know about IBM? The answer is nothing. And when I say they dominated everything, software, hardware, services in the computer business in 1980, they're like, what?
IBM made all the money in computing before Microsoft.
We wanted to democratize computing, and we wanted to take it global. We wanted to make it worldwide.
We called it Interface Manager to start. We said, we got to do graphical user interface. Let's do Windows.
What it came down to was a question of whether IBM would have its own graphic user interface operating system, or whether Windows that we were working on would be the leader, and whether IBM would agree, would they compete with us, or they would ask us to step out of their way, or which operating system would go forward.
They said, no, this has got to be a joint product if we're going to do more. And so we did a joint development agreement to build a next generation operating system after MS-DOS that had a graphical user interface. Windows annoyed IBM because it wasn't OS2. Like, how could we have a side bet to OS2? And we said, well, look, we got to do something for this DOS thing. And so we kept working on Windows. And, Bill and I used to refer to it as trying to ride the bear, because you're on this big old animal and we're this little old company, a little tiny company. And, how do you navigate when the bear goes like this? They were everything. And navigating that was hard. That was a big part of my life. It was a big part of my job.
I think over the course of those visits, I think with almost historic development being done back here on campus, Bill and Steve were able to convince the people at IBM that Windows was superior and that Microsoft knew more about how to build an operating system and improve an operating system over time than IBM could at the time, or maybe ever could.
We wanted it to be the operating system that brought the joy and power of personal computing to everybody, to people around the world of all different shapes and colors and backgrounds and professions, from moms and dads and kids and mechanics and spreadsheet jockeys and grandparents. We wanted this to be kind of that fulfilling that vision of a graphical operating system taken to the mass market.
They eventually persuaded their opposite numbers at IBM that this was not a race IBM was going to win, and they should instead find ways to get out of our way and to do what they could with our operating system.
In 1990, IBM divorced us. I could vividly remember it. I had just gotten married. We moved out to remodel our house. My wife and I were out running along Lake Washington. I stopped to use the bathroom in the Woodmark Hotel. I saw the cover of the Wall Street Journal that basically said IBM had divorced us. We were petrified. We were going up against the bear now. And, it was an all-out war. We had to go beat IBM. One of our bright engineers, a guy named David Weiss, figured out how to break the 640K barrier with Windows, and that kind of broke the bank with IBM, because now it was clear it was going to be Windows and MS-DOS were already shipping, and were able to do everything OS2 was supposed to do.
We had a very expansive vision for Windows 95. We want PCs to be part of your everyday life.
I give the most credit to the development team for the great product that they built. They were in tune with customers themselves, and they wrote great code and wrote a great product.
Bill sort of pioneered this whole notion that to truly build an ecosystem, which is what academics call Windows and Office and the PC, you have to let the people out that aren't you make more money in total than you make. Then you're a healthy ecosystem. And that didn't exist before.
Steve understood the multiplier effect of developers. And he understood that the only way that Windows would ever be like a force out there and win, against anything else and be that thing that put a computer in every desktop and in every home Windows had to be popular, and the developers were that force multiplier that would get you there.
Again, just classic Gates, Microsoft. Work harder, work smarter. Figure it out. Come up with a superior product.
As big as we thought it would be, it was bigger. It was transcendent. It changed the world.
The fact that Office 95 shipped along with Windows 95, and it was this big, all sorts of new amazing products in the marketplace. But I think the biggest reason is that the user experience was just better than what Apple had at the time. That was it. It was just a better experience. I think that's it. It just took so much to get there.
Brad Silverberg, the saying he wanted us to keep in mind is, my mom needs to be able to use this. So we would ask ourselves, can Brad's mom figure this out? So it had to be stuff that was straightforward enough, that the setup was supposed to be easier, the use of the system was supposed to be easier. Windows 95 introduced plug and play, which we used to call plug and pray because it still had some bugs. But I don't know if you remember what it was like putting a new networking card into your system in Windows 3.1.1, but you had to it was a nail biter. And getting networking to work by itself was a nail biter, so having the system configure itself for all of that was groundbreaking.
Windows 95 had the 32-bit API for Windows applications, which then allowed us to embrace that for Office 95, and MSN came out there, and really the whole company rallied around Windows 95 as being the tentpole to create that next generation.
We felt like we were changing the world. The people in Office, I'm sure, felt like they were changing the world. The people in Windows or OS2, when we still had that, they felt like they were changing the world. And in a lot of ways we were, because it was this emerging PC era where, people, you had personal computers that, generations before us could never even imagine what was possible. And we had to give people the tools and the programs and the capability to take advantage of what this computing represented for them.
There were actually two celebrations. The first celebration was on RTM Day. Back then, it was distributed on floppies or CD-ROMs. We didn't really have online ways of distributing software. So we had to release the product to manufacturing, what we call a golden disc. That got released to the OEM so that they could install it on their machines that could be ready for launch. And that we could also then build packages that would be in the retail stores for launch day. So RTM Day was July 14th, Bastille Day. And David Cole and I signed the master disc in front of the team members. And we kind of went crazy on campus.
As soon as the party started, there was whipped cream flying in all over the place. There were strawberries. People were drinking the Dom Perignon and spraying the other. And so everybody was being sprayed by champagne, sprayed by, whipped cream, strawberries everywhere. Somebody was spinning their motorcycle down the hallway and tore up all the carpet.
I was reprimanded later by operations, but that was an incredible release of tension and pride. And that party, that celebration was really for the team. That was for ourselves. August 24, the skies cleared and the skies were full of clouds that looked like the box. And this is the box. This is actually the very first unit of Windows 95 that rolled off the production line. That was given to me as a gift by the team.
The launch event was a big deal. It wasn't just Jay Leno. We had a carnival. All the software developers and PC manufacturers had booths. We had a Ferris wheel. We had all sorts of craziness going on. And it turned out that a beta tester of Windows 95 was Steven Spielberg. And he wanted to talk to me about Windows 95. And he wanted to talk about how, he had this idea for a commercial for Windows 95. And he started telling me all about that. He said, in The Wizard of Oz, when it's all black and white, well, then later it turns to color. Well, black and white is the old Windows, and the color part of the Wizard of Oz is Windows 95, and you should do that. And he was super nice and very creative, and you know, we had all these kind of experiences. It wasn't a bad idea for commercial, by the way, although Start Me Up ended up being better.
It was the largest software event in history and still is. We had the Empire State Building lit up. We had CN Tower in Toronto lit up. We had Tower of London. It was a worldwide event.
And we had a week of comic strips from Doonesbury lampooning Windows 95. I went to my team and I said, we achieved our goal to make Windows 95 a consumer phenomenon.
We captured people's imagination worldwide. We captured the moment. We were the moment. It was us. It was us. It was like the future had just arrived. It was an exciting, joyful, optimistic future, and we were at the center of it.